Okay, guys, we're looking at As It Should Be, one of the really interesting Derek Mahon poems on the course. Again, not a difficult poem, but tremendously interesting. Certainly punches above its weight. It's a short poem. It's made up of 3 stanzas. It's technically a sonnet because it has 14 lines, although the structure isn't necessarily as we would expect a sonnet to be. It is a narrative poem. It's highly inventive. Mahon again looks at a character, like in after the Titanic, Bruce Ismay, and Antarctica. You've got Lawrence Oates in Rathlin. You've got Swar Le Bui, excuse the pronunciation. He's in the Chinese restaurant in Port Rush. You've got that proprietor of the restaurant. His poems are populated by, interesting characters, and possibly this is the most interesting one. Here, the character speaks. So this is essentially a piece of, it's like a monologue. And what Mahon is interested in here, again, is always the perspective of the world outside of our own perspective, how other people view the world. And here, he's looking at the world through the eyes of a fanatic. Mahon is a man from Ulster, from Belfast. He's from a Protestant heritage. You might have read the poem Grandfather. I Don't Teach It is a very interesting poem. It's about that heritage, that Ulster Protestant heritage. But he was a man whose formative years of early adulthood were marked by the Troubles in Northern Ireland, the terrible paroxysm of violence that kind of sparked in 1969 and went all the way. I mean, there's an argument we're still living with the consequence of it. The violence in most part ended with the Good Friday Agreement in 1997. But during that period of time, Mahon's home place, Ireland, particularly Ulster, was populated by people who felt justified in taking other lives for political reasons. And Mahon in this poem tries to get into the mind of that kind of person, the fanatic. And he lets that person speak. And as that person speaks, we learn about him and we are given an insight into this type of worldview. We can judge for ourselves what we think of him. The poem opens brilliantly with, "We hunted the mad bastard." So just look at the verb choice, hunted. Hunting, believe it or not, was a sport, a blood sport. The sense is from the beginning that the speaker is describing something that he enjoyed. What was he hunting? What was the prey? Another human being. But he doesn't call him another person. He calls him a mad bastard. Doing what all bigots do and will continue to do, dehumanizing their victims. Calling him mad, calling him a bastard, making him sound dangerous and therefore justifying the hunt. The relish, the enjoyment, the pleasure that the speaker takes in the hunt is evident from the detail, the incredible amount of forensic detail that we're given in the rest of the first stanza. Through bog, moorland, rock, into the starlit west, and gunned him down in a blind yard, that's like a cul-de-sac, between 10 sleeping lorries and an electricity generator. I'm actually going to change the colour of those details there. You don't need to learn them. It'd be good if you knew some of those details. But again, we have a very, very vivid setting description. Reminds me of the description of Antarctica in that poem, of the sinking of the Titanic in that poem, of Rathlin Island in that poem, of Protestant Belfast and Ecclesiastes. Man is a poet who pays attention to little details, and those little details, they're like the strokes of a painter's brush across a canvas. They combine to create powerful and vivid imagery. So he's remembering every detail. We hunted bog, moorland, into the starlit west. We gunned him down in a blind alley. There was 10 sleeping lorries and an electricity generator. So he's remembering all these details because he enjoyed the act of killing. And then in the second stanza, the speaker justifies what he's done. And the most important line in this poem, I think, by miles is the metaphor that begins the second stanza. Now, after making a mistake there, apologies. Should be yellow. We're learning this. Let us hear no idle talk of the moon in the yellow river. Now, you can look at 15 different books and they'll all explain to you different meanings of the moon in the yellow river. I just want you to drill down into this phrase in particular. Idle talk. What the speaker is doing is shutting down discussion of what he's done. Particularly morality, the morality of what he's done. When he refers to the moon in the yellow river, he's referring to something called moral philosophy. And moral philosophy is the discussion of what is acceptable. And the moon in the yellow river is a reference to Eastern Confucian philosophy. But that doesn't matter. You don't have to think about that. What you have to understand is that the speaker is saying, I'm not going to discuss the rights or wrong about this. And the reason he's not is because he feels he's right. The air blows softer since his departure. Look at the language. Since his tide burial during school hours, our children have known no bad dreams. So he's saying, I killed this guy to make the world a better place. The air blows softer since his departure. The kids are safer since his departure. So what's he doing? He's justifying what he's done and saying he did it to make the world a better place. When the truth is, he enjoyed what he did. He enjoyed the hunt. He enjoyed the violence. And he is a man who will not tolerate a different point of view. And that sense of fanaticism, very scary fanaticism, is captured in the final stanza when he says, their cries echo lightly along the coast. Again, look, softer, lightly. The world is better now. It's less troublesome than it was before I did this thing. And then the line, which you know because it's the title of the poem. This is as it should be. 6 words, 6 syllables. Simple language, a simple worldview. I'm right. Anybody who disagrees with me is wrong. I know what has to be done. Man, through this poem, is giving voice to the fanatic. And isn't it very interesting that he doesn't identify the side the killer's on? Is he a Republican? Is he a loyalist? Is he somebody who's devoted to another cause? Mahon is saying this is the way fanatics operate. They have a narrow worldview. They fundamentally are violent and enjoy the violence. And then they say that this terrible wound that they inflict on the world is justified because they know what's right and anybody who disagrees with them is wrong. He says they will thank us for it when they grow up to a world with method in it. So he knows the methodology to make the world a better place and nobody will challenge him. Now, isn't that a fascinating poem? You talk about Mahon, his insights into human nature, talk about Antarctica, our capacity for the ridiculous and the sublime. You talk about after the Titanic, our capacity for failure and self-pity, but also the extent to which we judge each other and our failings. And this poem, our capacity for evil, our capacity for cruelty, our capacity for violence, our capacity for ignorance. Mahon crafts this beautiful story, this narrative that's filled with symbols to challenge us to think again. Remember I said to you over and over again about the world from a different perspective. This time, quite a troubling and dark perspective.